Hey guys, so we got some details from Alexis in the main Discord. He is one of the main Warbond designers, and he dropped a lot of tidbits about the Warbond next week, mainly talking about the hammer. We have tons of details about the hammer, some small details about the Trident, literally just one message about it, no stats. And then we got some demo stats for the leveler and some of the other items, and we got info about the armor passive, which actually has two passives. It's not just the one listed in the blog post, and some more questions beyond that. So let's go ahead and cover all the info for you guys. First things first, with the armor passive, it was a stamina back when you take damage. Now, someone said, is the stamina given based on the amount of damage taken, or is it a reasonable amount? Now, Alexis said it's a percentage of damage taken. I honestly wonder what this percentage is. And I also am curious how damage values translate into stamina. Like, if it's like 10% of damage, if you get hit by a claw, do you just get like a little tick of stamina back? It sounds very confusing. Now, with that being said, someone asked specifically, will it pair with Dead Sprint? And he said, oh yeah, we tested the synergy specifically. So what happens is you run out of stamina, you take one tick of damage from Dead Sprint, and it gives you a bit of stamina from the armor repeat. I feel like it works as I would expect. Let us know if it doesn't. Again, if it's a percent of damage, and Dead Sprint does like, I think 5 damage to you technically per tick, and then you have Vitality Booster, which makes it deal 10% less. I'm curious how this is all going to play out. And finally, for the second passive on the new armor set, it is higher armor rating, but it's only plus 25. Personally, I was expecting it to be explosive resistance. I'm kind of curious why it isn't and why they opted for the higher armor rating. It would have seemed like an okay side grade to the explosive recoil, being the explosive but like get a little bit of stamina back. So if you were using like a fully auto weapon, you could use the recoil armor, and if not, you could use the stamina armor. But with that being said, it does have some higher padding on it, which actually means that the medium armor set coming out will be useful because you won't take as much headshot damage as regular medium armor or light armor. Okay, so next we're gonna talk about the hammer. I'll just be upfront with you guys. The hammer is like the thing I'm least looking forwards to. I mean, I think that's fair given how melee weapons are not super strong in Helldivers. They're not super powerful. He left the most details on the hammer compared to anything else. I'm gonna try to not sound like a downer for this section. I truly am excited for like the Trident and the other two stratagems, and even the bubble shield grenades look really cool. The hammer's just the thing I'm the least excited about. Okay, that's just me being honest. So first of all, he said, super excited about the next Warbond. The there's no one left to raise an alarm is my kind of stealth, and the breaching hammer is his magnum opus. So looking forward to your feedback when it is out. Now, he did actually drop just straight up the damage of the hammer, and he dropped the demo force in a later message. The hammer has 7 charges total, so it has ammo and you can reload it. You can literally reload your hammer. It does 300 melee damage, which I believe is medium pen, and then 2100 explosive damage, which is anti-tank. So hey, at least it has decent damage. I believe this is enough to just one-shot a charger in the face. I'll definitely be trying that out. And that is like some worth it damage. You know what I mean? Like that is some decent damage. You can one tap a Hulk with that. You can probably, I wonder if you hit a flesh mob in the face, if you can one tap it, that'll be super interesting to test out. But yeah, honestly, like I said, with some of these other details about the hammer, I'm still not super excited about it, but we will see. So just a developer tidbit, Alexis did say when they started working on the Warbond, they decided early that they can't not make a sledgehammer. The issue was it doesn't feel like a sidearm, but it's not strong enough for a support weapon, so he thought to himself, what would Super Earth do? And more explosions was the answer. It's always the answer. Isn't that just real and true? So next, I just ought to mention that the hammer has 30 demo. This is not enough to kill a fabricator from the outside, so I wonder maybe if you can hit the fabricator in the door and just kill it. The anti-tank damage is also not enough to one-shot it if it's AP 5, because it gets the armor match penalty, right? So hopefully you could just hit fabricators in the door and destroy them. And I'm also curious how loud it is for sort of stealth purposes. Now, one thing that actually does sound really good is that someone said as long as it doesn't have the atrocious chainsaw swing pattern, I'm okay. And Alexis said we got similar feedback during internal playtests, actually, that it's hard to hit enemies with the hammer. My theory is that it's difficult to see how close you are to the target in third-person view, so people swing a bit earlier than needed, and a lot of games cheat super hard with their hit zone, so there's this bias as well. I tweak the damage zone and the complaint stops, so hopefully the hammer will be comfortable to use. And at least this is a good sign, because this is one of my complaints with a lot of melee weapons in the game, is that their patterns their just swing animation is too short a lot of the time. I believe if you just look at Elden Ring, like melee frame data, they have like giant hitboxes around some of the melee weapons, the player and the enemy melee attacks for what it's worth. But with that being said, I do think they need to do a bit of that in Helldivers, and it sounds like they did do a bit of that for the hammer, so that's actually a really good sign. Now, another little developer tidbit, but someone said, how often during development did you end up having an infinite explosive hammer? And Alexis said the hammer started as an infinite ammo one as a prototype. Then we quickly realized it's in recoilless territory damage-wise, so ammo limit is going to be the main balancing lever. I also had a prototype where I hooked up the arc grenades explosion to it, and that was fun, not Helldiver-y anymore. Now, I would say that like 7 hammer ammo compared to 6 recoilless is a little bit crazy. At least you don't have a backpack, so you can just supply pack it, and you will probably never run out of ammo on the thing. But yeah, just a little bit skeptical on some of the balancing with this, you know, hearing that, like, you know, they decided to give it 7 ammo when the recoilless has 6 is just a little bit crazy to me. Okay, and then the next thing as well is, does the explosion damage affect the player? The explosion would have been 20 times more than needed to kill you. I figured the Helldiver is competent enough to know which side to ward the enemy, so no, you don't get killed by your own explosion. It staggers you a bit, and I believe deals a little damage to your right arm, similar to the variable full blast mode. So, unfortunately, the hammer freaking damages you a little bit, at least when you're using the explosive charges. And yeah, just one of the unnecessary downside to melee weapons. And it's like I said, I don't want to sound like a downer. I promise I am looking forward to the rest of the items. But we're still on the hammer. So someone said, is it correct to presume that melee being not as good as projectile weaponry is the desired state of things? And Alexis said, melee is an optional playstyle, which is more fun for some people. It's not as viable as shooting your enemies from the distance for sure. However, he said we want to listen to the community as a whole, and that includes people who want to run around with a sword or flag for giggles or as a challenge. Now, I don't know how to tell you this, Alexis, but a week after every melee weapon comes out in a new Warbond, the pick rates go to 1%. You should know this internally. So saying you want to listen to the community as a whole, and then the challenge swingy weapon is like 1% of people actually picking it. I don't know. It does sound like they give the hammer actually, like it is the highest damaging melee weapon ever in the game. And it is anti-tank off rip. You know, you don't have to wind up to it at least. You just got to reload it. Hopefully the reload speed's not too long. Okay, so, you know, since we are on the topic of melee, someone asked, have you guys considered nerfing peak physique, but then buffing the melee weapon? So basically, like, people don't want to be forced into just wearing peak physique for melee. They would rather the melee weapons just be stronger. Personally, I would like to see a faster swing speed armor. I think that would be a good melee armor set. But, you know, put more damage into the melee weapons themselves. And Alexis said we're looking into that. The discrepancy between melee with and without peak physique is massive, and we don't want to lock people into a specific build. We just need to address it in a way that doesn't feel like a net loss. Now, personally, I would just say, like, lower peak physique to back down to 50% and just buff all the melee weapons by 50%. That literally wouldn't be a net loss. And I don't know, maybe that would work. Okay, another aside before we get into the other items in the Warbond. Someone said, did you design the armors or have part in the designs? And Alexis said, not the visuals. We are working with artists to brainstorm what each armor set actually does, what effect it has. This is also the reason we don't do headshots deal extra damage kind of effects, because it's the same bullet hitting the same enemy. We try not to do space magic, except for democracy protects, of course, realism. Am I right? Yes, you are right. Realism. It's bad. Get it out of the game. And it's also kind of funny that headshots, they don't want they don't want to give us armor sets that headshots deal extra damage, when if you look at the Helldiver health point values, our heads don't have health pools like the enemies do. We actually just take more damage to the head. So it kind of works like that for us, but you know, not for any of the Helldiver armor sets. Okay, and the last message about the hammer and the melee, and I will stop being a Debbie Downer. It is apparently insane with the warp pack for the ultimate teleport behind you, nothing personal kid build. Okay, and then someone said, what do you guys usually make armor stats for? Is it for defensive or to enable builds? Alexa said mostly the Warbond theme. Sometimes we make effects that enable other builds. Sometimes we try to protect you from your teammates, like the fire resistant one. Okay, so now on to the Eat 411, the Eat All. Someone said, will you get just one or two? And Alexa said you get one with a longer cooldown. And in its defense, it's very powerful. Now, I'm kind of hoping for like a 500 kg on the Eat All. That would be really cool. Basically just a fat man from Fallout in your hands. And I am really hoping that the cooldown is like a minute 45. You know, you get two 500 kgs every 2.5 minutes. So I think like the napalm eats, the neats cooldown, which is like a minute 45, would probably be fair for the leveler. I'm just hoping it's not 3 minutes. I think that would kind of suck, but you never know. Maybe it'll still be good anyway. And the leveler does have 40 demolition, so this is not enough for stratagem jammers. With that being said, it can break Bile Titan holes. It can break fabricators and bug holes from the outside of it with just a splash radius. It can kill biofabricators. There's a couple things out there with 40 demo that is important, but it is not enough for stratagem jammers or detector towers. And someone in the Discord said, we love you. Thank you for not trivializing jammers. And Alexis said, after the ultimatum situation, we made up our mind about the whole destroy jammers from a distance thing. So it sounds like they're really never going to add an item that can destroy jammers from a distance. I think Hellbomb Backpack is fair in their eyes. So anything similar to Hellbomb Backpack might be able to do it in the future. But Solo Silo can't. It doesn't sound like they're going to make it do that. And the Eat All cannot either. Now, I'll just say I am fine with this. I'm happy with this. Way over a year ago when we made like our first spreadsheet buffs for before the 60-day plan, I wrote in there that like the difficulty should come from the mission objectives, not from bullet sponge enemies. And, you know, they do have to balance the weapons and the enemies a bit better, like get rid of some of those durable buffs on the warriors. But personally, I'm team stratagem jammer. I know Delta Greg is gonna hate on me in the next video. It is what it is. Okay, so now next to the belt-fed grenade launcher, and Alexis said belt-fed grenade launcher is similar to maxi gun versus HMG. Belt-fed is higher fire rate, but smaller rounds. Now, the maxi gun's more, this comparison is better for the MMG. But with that being said, it sounds like the belt-fed grenade launcher is going to do less damage than a normal grenade launcher, which is a bit weird. I guess it just has really fast fire rate, and it will just have more ammo. He did not say how much ammo it was going to have. Now, he did say the autocannon is the closest comparison, similar damage output. Now, I'm wondering if he means DPS here, because the autocannon per shot does more damage than the normal grenade launcher. It does like 300 projectile, or maybe it's 325 now. Someone in the comments let me know, but it's only 150 explosive. I'm pretty sure it does like 450 or 475 total damage, whereas the regular grenade launcher does 400. So yeah, either way, this will be interesting. I actually am looking forward to the backpack grenade launcher. The regular grenade launcher is one of the most goated weapons on bugs, and I would have to imagine that the belt-fed one is as well. Okay, so another side question. Have there been any thoughts for adding red stratagems in Warbonds? And Alexa said, personally, I would rather see reds added to their standard progression outside of Warbonds, because a Warbond is thematically an equipment pack. Adding ordnance doesn't make much sense to me. Now, yeah, I agree. This is a good answer. But hey, when are we going to get our next red? Okay, the last one we got was Orbital Napalm Barrage. Speaking of Orbital Napalm Barrage, somebody asked if they would nerf it. Please. And Alexa said, that's my baby, so no. And I do remember there's a really old message from Alexis where he said he designed it. So I guess he just doesn't want to nerf it because he likes it. Okay, so now we didn't get really any details about the Trident. Someone said, can you say anything about it? And he said, it was unexpectedly tricky to adapt our existing beam tech for rapid fire. Now, the Trident, the way it shoots actually looks really cool. It is kind of like scythe lasers that just like turn on, but it's like hit scan projectiles in a sense. So it's kind of like a beam that just turns on and off, but it's more similar to the sickle in the way it deals damage rather than the scythe. At least that's how it looked in the trailer, and that's how it worked in Helldivers 1. Now, someone else asked, I want to know the balancing mindset when porting HD1 weapons to HD2, like the Trident. Do you try to keep the spirit of the old weapons? Alexa said, practically a blank slate. There's such a huge difference between the games. Balance-wise, we had to redo it completely. The only thing I care about is whether or not it feels like a good old OG Trident. And that's honestly a good answer. As long as it feels like a good old OG Trident. The Trident was a lot of people's favorite gun from Helldivers 1. So, you know, if it feels like that, trust me, it'll be good. Even if it's light pen. He didn't tell us what armor pen it was. And yeah. And then finally, he said, before I go, I want to share some design intent into the shield grenades. Despite being more of a utility tool, I think they have a lot of synergies with other items in the game. Example, making the maxi gun more viable on bots. Also, I saved so many blueberries with them. The best use case so far is to use them on the Hellbomb objective and other terminals in general. Now, if Alexis is saying that it makes the maxi gun more viable on bots, then I will just have to assume that if you're standing inside of it, you won't get ragdolled from a rocket landing outside of it, because that's what you would need to make the maxi gun more viable on bots. So hopefully they did test this, and hopefully they gave you ragdoll immunity while you're inside of it, because you're not taking damage from the rocket. But I know the shield backpack, you get ragdolled when it gets hit, and I don't know about the bubble shield. I feel like you do if you're standing near the edge and a rocket lands nearby, but hopefully you don't get ragdolled because it was a pretty small radius. These are just grenades. It doesn't make a giant bubble. It just kind of makes a little one that you can stand inside of. Okay, and those are all the details he shared. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Like the video, turn on notifications, come to the live streams, and I'll see you guys next time. I'm out.